our promotion for this, and a lot of you saw our promotion for this forum, and it really focused on the Landsman Shabbat campaign, which we do have both involvement by Congressman Shabbat and Greg Landsman, but Councilman Landsman can't be with us till 12:30, and Congressman Shabbat can't be with us in person, but has provided a little tape recording. So we will hear from Congressman Shabbat, but we won't be able to ask him questions. But we're going to start off with a very important. By the way, I'm Bill Woods, the community outreach of Christ Church Cathedral. And the sponsors of these every other Thursday forums is Christ Church Cathedral downtown. And we always do 2 or 3 forums that focus on the major issues and some of the candidates' races that take place each fall. And this appears to me to be a particularly critical and important election. And we have a very critical issue that's going to be discussed in one moment by Linda Gallagher, who's the Vice President for Mental Health and Addiction Services for Hamilton County. And she's with us today to, this is a very important levy. Some people may be discouraged that it's an increase, but Linda Gallagher is going to tell us the ins and outs of what's this levy is all about and why the increase is needed. And those of us who have been reading the news about the impact on mental health of the recent pandemic, I don't know whether that'll come up in Linda's presentation or not, but that's certainly made mental health a much more needed service. Anyway, I'm going to turn it over to Linda Gallagher, who knows everything there is to know about why we should support and what's in the Hamilton County Mental Health Levy. So Linda, take it away, and then we'll have some time for questions, and then we'll go on to the Shabbat Landsman race.
Thank you. Really appreciate the invite to be here this afternoon. I am going to see if I can share my screen, and can you see the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. So I will move this. All right. Hope everyone is doing well today. As Bill mentioned, I'm Linda Gallagher. I work for the Hamilton County Mental Health and Recovery Services Board. And yes, we have a levy on the ballot in November. It's issue number 9, by the way. So first I want to tell you a little bit about who we are. Our board provides leadership in public behavioral health care as the authority charged under statute with planning, funding.
Linda?
Yes.
Your picture flipped back to, it went off your PowerPoint.
Oh dear.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but it flipped back to, so.
Let me see what I
Yeah,
can do.
you've got, okay. There
Did you find it? Do you see it now?
There you go.
Yes, there we go.
Super.
Okay. So I think I probably need to keep it on the other screen then. I'm working with 2 screens here, and I didn't realize if I moved it from one to the other, that might be a problem. See, can you still see it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we provide leadership in public behavioral health care as the authority charged under statute with planning, funding, managing, and evaluating mental health and substance use disorder services in Hamilton County for Hamilton County residents. And essentially, we manage and develop a continuum of care, including mental health and alcohol and other drug treatment services, as well as prevention services that have a positive impact in our community. Our board contracts with about 37 local provider agencies to provide the treatment and prevention services for those individuals suffering from a severe mental illness or substance use disorder. Hamilton County Recovery Services Board does not provide services ourselves. So we are prohibited from doing so by statute, and we only contract with agencies certified in the state of Ohio to be able to provide behavioral health services. The mental health services that we fund are on a full continuum. We have a full continuum of care here in Hamilton County, from the more least intensive kinds of services like counseling and case management and prevention education. We're in a lot of schools and we're out in the community, all the way up to more intensive services, or the most intensive services, which are residential treatment and supported housing. The population that this levy serves are the indigent in our community. So these are individuals who don't have health insurance, are maybe on Medicaid, and while we don't, they use Medicaid first. There are a lot of wraparound and other supported services for individuals. Not everything that people need is covered by Medicaid. Certainly housing, supported housing is not covered by Medicaid. None of the prevention education services that we provide to the schools or the community is Medicaid reimbursable. So all these individuals who are out there who may not have Medicaid but need counseling or case management or medication for their severe mental illness, you know, this is that safety net for them. Also, there's an overrepresentation of minority individuals. Certainly when we talk about folks who are indigent, that tends to have an overrepresentation of our Black and Brown communities. So we really make sure that those individuals and families and communities are served by these levy funds. More men than women typically, more adults. Most children and youth are covered by insurance and or Medicaid. And so we do not see the highest number of those individuals when we talk about the numbers served each year. It's important that we track outcomes and can answer whether or not the services that we fund are helpful to the clients, whether or not they're improving. And the answer is resoundingly yes. We use vetted testing tools. And, you know, when we look at quality of life indicators, 70% improvement for adults and their problem severity and functioning. And then 74% improvement for youth when we look at problem severity and functioning. So there are different indicators. Are you, gosh, I can't think of the word. Are you doing better, for lack of a better phrase, in your life areas? Are you doing better in school? Are you doing better at home? Are you able to perform okay? And what does that look like? And for adults, it's and symptom distress. You know, a lot of severe mental health issues comes with all kinds of symptom distress, from hallucinations and agitation and not caring for oneself, or severe depression. you know, those are all symptoms that are showing improvement. We also make sure that the clients are satisfied with the services, with the providers that we contract with. And honestly, 90% and above clients seen are satisfied with services. And we also make sure that there's no statistical differences when it comes to race or gender. And thankfully, there is none. We've not had an increase in levy funding since 2008. And this slide really just demonstrates flat funding of services. There's not, as you can imagine, trying to provide a budget, trying to contract with agencies, and each year they get the same allocation or award of funding from us. But since 2008, there's been no increase to take a look at what that looks like. So that's certainly one of the reasons why we're looking for an increase. This slide demonstrates what inflation looks like. And consumer price index for inflation is the blue line, and medical consumer price index is the orange line. And then our levy revenues are the black line. And while our costs, or not our cost, our revenue has stayed the same, all the cost for everyone has just gone up exponentially. And essentially, we're trying to buy services that cost, according to Consumer Price Index, of $58 million with only a $35 million budget. We've not been able to keep up. Hamilton County Mental Health Recovery Services Board is very lean in administration. We have 23.8 staff who work here, overseeing, planning, developing, writing reports, ensuring outcomes for a $60 million organization. And 93.4% of the funding from this levy goes to contract services in the community. Should the levy pass, we've already identified priorities after, certainly living with increased cost and flat funding for multiple years. We intend to bolster crisis services for one. Housing for individuals has impacted everyone in our community, and certainly even more so for individuals who have a severe mental illness. And employment services also needs some additional support by these levy funds. And then there's the workforce support. This has been a real challenge. You know, you've read a lot about it, about the restaurants and other industries that can't seem to attract or retain workforce. And it's no different in the behavioral health field. And it's critical that we be able to fund and pay the individuals who are providing the services a decent wage so that we can retain them and we can recruit them. Because without our therapists, our case managers, our psychiatrists, our assessors, our peer recovery folks, clients won't get served. So we've got to figure this one out too. This is the 5-year forecast. And what we're looking for is a revenue of $44 million. Gosh, what slide is this? So this levy will support services for the next 5 years. We kindly ask for your support. The current cost per month of the mental health levy in Hamilton County per $100,000 home is $40.93 annually. I'm sorry, per month. And then the value would increase, it would be an additional $13.30 if should this levy pass. And I am ready to take questions if anybody has any.
Yes, questions out there. I think you've certainly made it clear with no increase since 2008 that some increase was needed. And your slide presentation really indicates what the funding is going for. Other questions out there for Linda? It's a complex levy because it covers lots and lots of services. One question, the board spends a lot of time evaluating the services that you're funding, is correct?
Absolutely. We have all of our providers by contract a lengthy outcome reporting. I'm kind of struggling here. A lengthy outcome reporting measurements for all the services that we have. And yes, our board of trustees certainly keeps in line with that. One of the things we've tried to do at times is try and give the providers who have who are meeting those marks, and all of them do, with some incentive on occasion to keep up the good work.
I'm going to ask a question.
Alice, I'm desperately trying to figure out how to stop sharing, and stop
At the
sharing.
top. So very good. Okay.
Thank you.
So the schools, the teachers, and I know you mentioned before that you do help the schools out with funding, but how much the teachers are complaining that students are having a difficult time, and particularly after the COVID. Is there anything special that will go to the schools, or is it just within the whole the same?
It won't be the same. Certainly we're hearing that too. The mental health crisis for youth and children has been well documented. You can't pick up a newspaper or read an article without that being known. So one of the things that we also are looking at bolstering and ramping up, should we get some additional funding for it, is suicide prevention. This is something that we've been extremely worried about, and certainly this pandemic has kind of brought to bear that we really need and we've had suicide prevention services. We're in the schools, we're doing prevention types of activities, but we want to be able to galvanize that a little bit more here in Hamilton County with some of these levy funds.
One thing that you mentioned, and I don't know whether you can enlarge on it, but the need for some of the money going to housing. I know we have affordable housing crisis in general in this county and city. And so I was pleased to hear that you're focusing some on that.
Sure. There are numbers of individuals who have a severe mental illness who receive a housing subsidy through our contracted providers, so that they don't have employment, or they don't make enough money with SSI or whatever it is to actually meet rent. So what we've been doing is trying to increase that housing subsidy and attract landlords to house our clients, because they don't want to. you know, when there are certain challenges sometimes that having a severe mental illness comes in being housed. And so there are landlords who don't want to rent to our clients and these families. So we are working at trying to increase those housing subsidies to make our clients more attractive to landlords who will agree to rent. But it's a struggle. It is a struggle.
Oh, here's a question. Will the increased money for staff permit increase in staff salaries?
Yes. I don't anticipate that this is really, you know, going to be life-changing, but we are aware that that staffing shortage out there, we've got to do something to increase those salaries so that, again, we can recruit and retain. There's some good people out there. You know, you generally don't go into social work unless it's part of your mission. You want to help people. You want to make a difference. You want the world to be a better place. And that's great. But you also have to be able to pay your rent and feed your family. And we certainly recognize that. And it's definitely past time that we try and bring those salaries up.
Any other questions? Linda's done a good job of explaining the levy to us and the need for it. We certainly appreciate her linking in today for this mission of talking about the levy. Any other final questions before we move on to the political side? Well, thank you, Linda. I hope you stay with us because there may be some people with some questions toward the end.
Sure, I can do that. Thank you.
And have we got Congressman, well, maybe we better go with Congressman Shabbat's message that he's given us that he is not able to respond to, but he's provided us with this tape to hear what he's all about. And then Councilman Landsman will be with us shortly, I think, unless he's already tuned in. Here we have Congressman Shabbat, who's been our congressman for around 26 years and is making the case why I should maintain that job. Oops. There's no sound.
You got new audio? We're not listening.
All right.
You have to talk to them.
We're figuring out we do have sound for this, I can assure you, but it seems not to be working at the moment. Is Councilman Landsman with us yet? Not yet. Thanks for bearing with us here.
There's no sound, probably no substance.
It's down at the bottom of his screen. There's a little volume button. I think you almost had it. Down to the bottom left.
Bottom left, isn't it?
It's right next to the play button. Bottom left. Now go to the volume again.
And build for the future. For example, during the pandemic, as the top Republican on the House Small Business Committee, I helped craft and implement the Paycheck Protection Program, or PPP. We were highly successful in that effort, and we received more money and saved more jobs than any other congressional district in Ohio. We've also been successful in bringing federal tax dollars back to Cincinnati to help a whole range of local projects. $16 million for the Waldvogel Viaduct, connecting Price Hill to downtown. Millions more for I-71 and 75 improvements. The redesign of Fort Washington Way, which made the banks possible. The street grid for the banks itself. The Martin Luther King interchange. The riverfront parks. The Mill Creek restoration. The Finley Market improvements. The Cincinnati Zoo parking garage. The UC Medical Science Building, Children's Hospital, the Lincoln Heights Health Center, the installation of cameras at dangerous street corners, as well as the body cams that our police officers wear, the Hamilton County 911 Dispatch Center, and the School for the Creative and Performing Arts, to name but a few. And of course, there's the Western Hills Viaduct and the Brent Spence Bridge. Just a few weeks ago, we helped secure $125 million for the Western Hills Viaduct, and we're continuing to work with local, state, and federal officials to help secure the necessary funds for the Brent Spence Bridge project. Of course, our community and our nation face significant challenges both at home and abroad. On the domestic front, our nation faces inflation that's too high, a border that's too open, and crime that's too rampant. Due to the misguided policies of the current administration, prices are skyrocketing, and we face crippling supply chain problems exacerbated by workforce shortages, and we're suffering energy shortages that undermine our economy. As a result, inflation is at a 40-year high and continues to put severe economic pressure on working families. People are hurting, and they need our help. Everything costs more, which makes it difficult to make ends meet. To fix this situation, Congress must rein in unnecessary spending, address the workforce and supply chain crisis, and support U.S. industries to once again obtain energy independence. With respect to crime, there's been a concerted effort by radical extremists to undermine and defund our local police. As a result, police morale is suffering, and we're struggling to find people who are willing to serve in law enforcement. An Enquirer article recently noted that the city of Cincinnati was unable to fill their latest recruit class. Crime, particularly violent crime, is skyrocketing across the country, especially in our nation's cities. To help combat rising crime, we must provide local law enforcement with the support and resources they need to better protect our communities. Over the years, I've worked closely with local police to help them do their jobs more efficiently and more effectively, which is why I've been endorsed by both the Cincinnati FOP and the Warren County FOP. Internationally, we face a significant threat by an increasingly aggressive China. They want to replace us as global leader and are willing to do whatever it takes to achieve that goal. As lead Republican on the Foreign Affairs Asia Subcommittee, I'm leading the effort to counter China's increasingly aggressive and hostile provocations. their theft of our intellectual property, and their hostile trade practices. In order to succeed in this effort, we must build stronger relationships with our allies in the region, particularly Taiwan, Japan, India, and Australia. Facing such challenges, it's crucial that we have leaders with experience and a track record of tackling complex issues. As your congressional representative, I've consistently fought to eliminate wasteful government spending, reduce the excessive tax burden on hardworking Americans, and to get the federal government off the backs of our small businesses. After all, 70% of the new jobs created in this country are created by America's small businesses. I've been recognized again and again by nonpartisan taxpayer advocacy groups, including Citizens Against Government Waste and the National Taxpayers Union, as one of the most taxpayer-friendly members of Congress. And I've been ranked as one of the top 10 most effective members of Congress in each of the studies done over the last 10 years by the University of Virginia and Vanderbilt. That's because I work with Democrats, despite the fact that I'm a conservative Republican. It's through bipartisanship that we get anything done. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak with you, and it's an honor to represent you in the United States Congress. I'd appreciate your vote on November 8th. Thank you.
Well, that was the tape. Sorry about the technology problems we had a little bit with it, but I hope you heard most of it. We have Councilman Greg Landsman with us, and in this,
Hey everyone.
I'm going to turn it over to Greg right this minute, since we're not able to ask any questions to the congressman. But Greg, good to have you with us, and give us your perspective on your campaign and the issues that you're concerned about, and how things are going.
Well, thank you all for letting me jump on and talk a little bit about the race. I'm Greg Landsman. I know most of you, but for those that may not know me as well, or as you're talking to friends and family about the race and the candidates, I'm first and foremost a father. My wife and I have two children, Elijah's and Maddie, 10 and 12. So that's a big part of our lives right now is raising them. Former teacher, my parents were teachers. I've been doing child education advocacy work my entire career. As many of you know, I led a really big coalition of folks to pass the preschool promise and much needed funding for our schools. Really believe that if we invest in children and work to make a community work really well for all kids, particularly those that have been historically marginalized, it's a really good place for everybody. And so that's been a big focus of mine at City Hall. This is my 5th year on City Council. I have focused on core services, investing in police and fire, sanitation, street paving, making sure that we're offering really great services to the citizens of Cincinnati. But then in addition to that, really investing in children and families, from childcare, prenatal care, childcare, youth jobs, housing affordability, eviction prevention work, whole host of things to make things easier for folks working, trying to raise a family, and cut property taxes every year. Again, as part of this larger effort to make it easier to raise a family. Running for Congress for a couple of reasons, was several, but the ones I'll mention at the, here is Cincinnati through redistricting became fully in Ohio 1. So since the city of Cincinnati has always been divided into 2 congressional districts, and it's in now 1 congressional district, Ohio 1. And the person who would represent us Steve Shabbat voted against certifying the election on January 6th, which I believe is disqualifying. Brad Winstrup was at the time also representing us. He voted to certify the election and be part of the peaceful transfer of power. There are so many votes that are very problematic and dangerous that Shabbat has pursued of late, but none of them are as problematic and disqualifying as trying to overturn an election. So here we are. I think I hear this from Republicans and independents, Democrats across the board. Folks feel very strongly that Shabbat has been there for way too long. He's become part of the problem. Whether it's January 6th and turning his back on us and our democracy, or his decade long effort to overturn Roe and take away reproductive freedom from us, and the fact that he supports a ban, federal bans on reproductive freedom with no exceptions for rape or incest or the health well-being of the mother. Just very out of touch and dangerous positions. And when it comes to gun violence, which is a very serious issue here, he when we look at Uvalde and these other situations, I think the vast majority of us, again, Republicans, independents, Democrats, want Congress to take real action to stand up to the gun lobby and get rid of these weapons of war, to keep them out of the hands of folks who are going to do bad things. And he gets more money from the gun lobby than all but one other member of Congress. So he has always fought to protect the guns and not our children. And then on the economy, there have been attempts to get wages up. He's voted against them, and many attempts to get costs down. And he's voted against all of those too, from capping insulin costs to lowering prescription drug prices to helping people with housing. You name it, he's been against it. So, again, he's been there for far too long, and we desperately need change. So I'm asking you each for your vote. It's a really important, sacred thing, and I'll be somebody who goes to DC and works to fix it, to protect our democracy, to restore our freedoms, and to make it a whole lot easier to raise a family. So with that, I'll stop and see if there are any questions.
Thank you, Councilman. What are some of the issues besides protecting the democratic process, which I think is critical, would you like to see happen in the, say you win this seat, and what would you like to see happen in Congress?
Yeah, in addition to a whole host of reforms to protect our elections and really strengthen the right to vote. The John Lewis Voting Rights Act has not been passed and needs to be passed. We need to get rid of gerrymandering. Whether Democrats do it, Republicans do it, it's undemocratic. And so there's a whole host of election reforms. Now, that's one. Two, Congress has got to take the lead to protect our freedoms, reproductive freedom. We've got to protect folks from an effort that's clearly underway to go after contraception, folks using IVF, marriage equality. The court has signaled that these are also on the chopping block. And so I want to be part of a Congress that, protects all of those freedoms and restores the ones we have lost. And then, serious, work to reduce gun violence here in Cincinnati and across the country. We've got to get serious about getting these crazy weapons out of our communities. Congress has to help cities and communities, in ways that it's not with the flooding. It's just our cops are getting so many guns off the streets every day, every week, every month. It's a staggering number of guns, but they just keep coming in, and we need real action from Congress to stand up to the gun lobby. And then the last thing is around fixing this broken economy. I mean, it's been broken for a long time, and that's a combination of getting wages up and costs down, but also tackling things like price gouging and the way in which some companies, because there's been so much consolidation that they can manipulate prices in a way that just hurts us all. So those are the big things I want to be part of. And I just lastly, Bill, sorry, we've never had a congressman, or have not in a long time, a member of Congress that, goes to DC, votes for the things that we need, and then comes home and continues to work on the big issues here. Shabbat has gone to DC and only returns for elections. He on all of the big regional issues we've been working on, whether it was preschool, the transit levy, we've got a big effort underway to really tackle the housing issue. He doesn't ever come to those. I mean, he's been I've never met him in my capacity as a member of council, ever. And so having somebody here working on those big issues, I think is going to be big, helpful.
Justin, Jeffrey, do you have a question?
I don't really, but looking forward to voting, and it's good to have this forum. So I appreciate you guys putting this on.
Hey, Justin.
Other questions out there? I'm sure there's got to be some questions. How are you finding the campaign in terms of, you actually have a competitive district this time around, even though that map that you're running under the district was not approved by the Ohio Supreme Court, it did improve this district. And so are you finding you're able to get out there and hear the voters?
Yeah, I really have enjoyed myself. It's not an easy task undertaking, but it's, as I said from the very beginning, it's a really good fight. It's an important one. I believe in this with, every fiber of my being, because of, how fragile things are as it relates to, really fundamental aspects of our lives, like our democracy and these core freedoms. But I like parades, and I like knocking on doors, and I like meeting people, and love the city, love the region. Feel really good about, this race and what we're doing. It is the hardest and the most challenging district Congressman Shabbat's ever had to run in. I think it's the hardest political environment for him since maybe 2008. And he is unpopular in this district in large part because of, what DC ultimately has done to him in terms of, these crazy votes. He's very dangerous and crazy votes against certifying election. These awful, bans on federal bans on abortion, voting against the, infrastructure bill and funding for roads and bridges, all of that stuff. And he's got a challenge in that I've been working on these big issues for 5, 6, 7, 8 years, and have built up a lot of trust with voters and have a track record. And it's just harder to, smear somebody successfully when voters know them better than they know you. So, it's been good, but there's, still 30 plus days left. And if you haven't voted already, make sure you go out and vote and tell your friends to vote. This is, you know, whether you vote for me or not, getting the number of voters up is hugely important in terms of the health of our democracy.
Questions out there for Councilman Landsman?
I have a question for the councilman.
Okay, Mark. Matt.
Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. But I would also like to ask you, how are you planning on addressing issues that are affecting the common family? You know, price gouging and, you know, just inflation in general. It's hard as a congressman and especially as a councilman to directly affect those changes in people's lives. So how would you do that as a congressman? And how would you want people's lives to change for the better in your district?
It's a great question, Mark. I mean, I think about it a lot. You know, Sarah and I are struggling, you know, too, like so many people. And we, you know, driving our kids all over the place between swim meets and soccer practice and school. And you know, so we feel it, you know, when we fill up our cars and at the grocery store. And I think most families don't want, you know, handouts. They do want a little bit of help though, when it comes to, you know, paying for those things that have become really expensive, especially compared to what they're making. And, you know, there have been attempts and unfortunately we haven't got them all done, but, you know, being able to help people pay for preschool, which we've done in Cincinnati, has made a big difference. You know, this is the 5th year, you know, we're going into the 6th year of the preschool promise. 93% of families that filled out the survey said that they would not have been able to pay for high quality preschool without the help of the preschool promise. And it doesn't always pay for all of the preschool, it pays for some of it. It just makes it easier for folks to afford preschool. And that should be the case for childcare. It should be the case for healthcare. It should be the case for prescription drugs. Like, you know, if you're diabetic, it shouldn't be so hard to pay for and to buy your insulin every month. And so that's where Congress can make a big difference. Same with, you know, college. And there have been efforts, and I will support those efforts to make it, you know, just a little bit easier for families. The other structural issues in terms of the price gouging and the consolidation, those are going to require the passage of bills that exist in the Congress. And, you know, just, you know, we got to push them. You know, you got to elect enough of us who are willing to tackle corporate consolidation and create real competitiveness in the marketplace. I have a degree in economics. I was trained at an early age as to how markets are supposed to work in a real, you know, in real capitalism. And that is, you know, really, you know, serious, you know, competition. And so we've got to get to a place where we have that kind of competition across the board, and we don't have a few companies setting the price. You know, and that's been the case in several areas, and that's why people feel it when they go to the grocery store. The price gouging stuff is, you know, really at the pump, and you see it here in Cincinnati. You can go from one side of this city and pay probably 50 cents to $1 less than in other places for, you know, for gas. And that's because Congress has allowed folks to price gouge, and, you know, we can end it.
Other questions out there for the councilman? One question I had, just because we're living in such a polarized and misinformation era right now, have you been doing any campaigning out in Warren County, and what kind of response are you getting out there?
Yeah, a lot of campaigning in Warren. Love Warren. And, you know, it's the same response as we've gotten anywhere else. It's not any different. It's, you know, obviously not everyone's with us, but it's just whether you knock on the door or talk to somebody who's a Democrat or an independent or Republican or just somebody who just doesn't think about politics that much, they are very frustrated with Washington. And they know Shabbat, and they're frustrated. They're frustrated that he only comes around, to ask for votes, and that he continuously votes against the things that they've been, wanting. The three big ones. One is the vote on insulin. It's it's hard for people to understand why somebody would vote against capping insulin costs. They're frustrated about the vote on the bridge. We've been trying to get funding for this bridge for a long time. And, had he been successful, we wouldn't have money for the Western Hills Viaduct or for the Brent Spence Bridge. That's frustrating for folks. And January 6th in the abortion positions are just too much for a lot of folks to stomach. So, and that's whether they live in Lebanon or, Madeira or, Hyde Park or Avondale. So, HA asked about how I handle my family priorities with all that travel to DC, which is very optimistic. I thank you for that question. I will be one of those. The first member I ever worked for was Ted Strickland. And it's how I've always thought members of Congress were supposed to be, which is they go to DC, they vote, and then they come back home. And their work is and always is at home. So you go up there, you vote for a couple of nights, and if you have to sleep on the couch, you do, and then you get back home and you're with your family and you're with your constituents and you're working on the issues that matter most to the folks back here, and you don't get pulled into all that nonsense in DC.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Councilman Landsman, or questions on the mental health levy, Hamilton County mental health levy? Because we still have Linda Gallagher with us here, who gave us a fine presentation about that levy. So any final questions from anyone about those two campaigns?
Thank you all. I appreciate you.
Sorry we didn't have the congressman in person so that you could not debate really, but at least spar a little on a few issues. One
I'm
issue.
sorry you didn't have him because it's, he works for you all. You all pay his salary. Not showing up is a big deal, I think. But all right.
Well, thank you very much, Councilman, and thank you, folks, and thank you, Linda Gallagher, for your great presentation.
Yeah, keep up the good work, Linda.
And we will see you all soon. Okay.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Good luck.